Hi, I'm Barney Walsh. I'm teaching fellow here at the African Leadership Centre at King's. I'm just welcoming you all here to London on behalf of the faculty who are based here in London. It's a nice time of year because we have our London team and fellows, along with the Nairobi-based fellows and faculty, and also our leading practitioners are here all together. But I'm going to pass over for proper introduction to Shivai Nyoni, my big boss, the Executive Director of the African Leadership Centre in Nairobi. She's the first alumna of the African Leadership Centre to serve as Executive Director. Prior to this role, she was working as Director of Interventions and before that Regional Advocacy Specialist at the Centre for the Study of Violence and Reconciliation in Johannesburg. She's worked as a gender advisor and investigator for sexual and gender-based violence as crimes in conflict, recently in South Sudan, and serves on the UN Women Justice Rapid Response roster. So over to you, Shivai. Thank you.
Thank you, Barney, and good morning, everyone. Welcome to the African Leadership Centre's and King's College Africa debate. The ALC, as Barney has partly explained, is located both here at King's College London as an academic department and also in Nairobi in partnership with the University of Nairobi. And here today we have some of the trainees or participants in our fellowship programs from three of our programs, one being the African Women in Peace and Security Fellowship Program, the other is African Scholars, and those are and the scholars are based here at King's doing their masters at the ALC, and then we have one of our fellows from our early career fellowships program. The simulations are a part of the fellows training, and they are essentially a simulated debate, simulated real-life issue taken from the African continent with peace and security implications, peace, security, development implications, and the fellows will be enacting essentially a role, but using much of the training they've had over the last 6 to 7 months in leadership studies as well as peace, security, and development. My role is not to say too much more, but really to welcome you and to thank you for joining us today, and to please encourage you to participate in the discussions as this will add to the debate. I'm going to hand back over to Barney now. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So now to introduce keynote speaker, who's one of my other big bosses. Professor Fumi Olonishakin, who's Vice President, Vice Principal of International here at King's and Professor of Security, Leadership and Development at King's. She's the founding director of the African Leadership Centre and was previously director of the Conflict, Security and Development Group at King's. She's positioned her work to serve as a key bridge between academia and the worlds of policy and practice, which she has done far better than most of us academics claim to do. And her recent research is focused on reframing narratives of peace and state building in Africa, and a focus on future peace, society, and the state in Africa. In 2015, she was appointed by the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon as one of 7 members of the advisory group of experts on the review of the UN peace-building architecture. She was also appointed in 2016 as a member of the advisory group for the UN Progress Study on Youth, Peace and Security. So thank you, Fumi.
Hi everyone, I was hardly expecting Barney to give me that kind of elaborate introduction, but thank you so much, and welcome to this year's Africa debate. It's so nice to see familiar faces in the audience looking differently, ready for the role playing. But I would like to seize this opportunity to welcome members of King's College's African Leadership Centre who come here twice in the course of every year during each term. And that will be our leading practitioners in the room. I warmly welcome Professor Yusuf Mahmoud, whose manuscript on the Leading Practitioners Program is ready, and I cannot wait for a moment when we would launch. And sitting next to him, Ms. Bisi Adele-Efayemi, who's also visiting senior fellow with us at the African Leadership Center, and one of the leading practitioners whose manuscript will be ready sometime in the next year, and we will also launch at King's. Without further ado, I would like to say a few words about what today's what today's simulations tell us about leadership. I deliberately want to focus on the leadership implications of the conversations we're about to have. And if you see here, ALC King's Africa Debate, Geriatric Countdown in Africa, Lifetime Presidents in the Midst of Crisis. There's a misnomer about that topic when it comes to leadership. What I have learned in the last decade and a half of introducing leadership studies into my peace and security studies is that conceptually, at the heart of leadership, are two or more things that we cannot run away from. I think, in fact, we could count 5 things that are consistent when we think about leadership. But in leadership studies, the one big concept that is so central to what we do in developing societies is mutuality. And the concept of mutuality suggests that every now and again, you see emergent leadership in response to shared experiences, common situations that people in a group or society experience. And that mutuality is about the shared goals, all right? The mutual pursuit of a response to that situation by leaders and the rest of the affected community. The literature will refer to that as leaders and followers, all right? About that mutual pursuit of a common agenda, of a common goal in their shared or common situation. And therefore, the idea that you'd have leadership responding or a leadership response to challenging situations in developing countries, which is not shared, which is not based on a common pursuit, is something that is very strange. But the second concept that helps us to drive today's topic home is that of change. It's Albert Murphy, and our leadership scholars understand that a lot, quite a bit. At the core of Albert Murphy's leadership analysis, which sees leadership as a sociological phenomenon, is that situations make leaders. Regardless of what that situation is, those situations that are shared in common by a group of people, by a society, across the board, or at least clearly shared in common between a group of leaders, a leader, if you like, and a group of followers, i.e. the affected community. That situation, those situations create the emergence of a leader. Albert Murphy says, when situations change, leaders also change. Or at least that is very frequently the case. If we face a situation today and there's emergent leadership in response to that situation because some of the best ideas come from that society and you have a leader emerge in response to that, that situation is not permanent. It will change. It is bound to change. It's one of the laws of life. When that situation changes, more often than not, you will find another idea, another kind of response that everyone deems real, that they deem it, they see it, they sense it as the response to the challenge of the moment. And therefore, the idea that leaders change as situations change is core to our understanding of leadership literature. So something is a bit bizarre when suddenly we see the idea of lifetime precedents because it connotes, it suggests actually that these people, it does not matter what the situation is. It does not matter what the circumstances of that particular society will be. It suggests that they have had answers to all of the problems of that society, that only they can rule or govern, whatever it is, the situations in that society. So when you see something that says lifetime precedents in the midst of crisis, the crisis itself connotes, or maybe, shall I put it as a question? The idea that you have lifetime precedents in the midst of crisis, does that not connote that the leader, the presence of that lifetime precedent has become the situation? And may have become actually also the crisis. That is the question. And our panelists today will, staying in role play, begin to help us untie some knots. Why do we have, for decades, situations in which the same leaders sit at the center of it and suggest that they have answers to all the problems and all the situations that have been in front of them across those decades? And if you look at the two countries at the heart of today's debate, they're very, very interesting indeed. And is it possible that in the midst of crisis in those countries, we can suppress emergent leadership? Can we? And can we suppress that emergent leadership without creating crisis or without exacerbating crisis? These are the questions for our panelists today as we begin to look at the changing or not situations in these two countries, in Uganda and in Cameroon. Are we finding emergent leadership? Will transformation occur? Or are we going to still continue to have lifetime precedents? I hope that we'll, and I know, given previous years' experiences, that we'll have a lively debate, and it is the job of the audience, the job of everyone in this room, to critically assess, appraise, and challenge our fellows as they come up with their different arguments to some of these questions. You're very welcome. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Hi, the first panel can come up. So final introduction from me today is to introduce our moderator, Desmond Davis, a long-term friend, colleague, and mentor at the ALC. He's been a mentor on strategic communication for leadership at the ALC since 2008. Originally from Sierra Leone, he is a journalist with over 45 years' experience, former editor of West Africa magazine here in London, and currently he is the London Bureau Chief of the Ghana News Agency and editor of Africa Briefing magazine. So over to you, Desmond.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. President Paul Biya has been in power since 1982, and last year he was re-elected for another 7-year term, which will take him on to 2025. And in 2025, he will be 93. So we're just wondering whether he's in a position to cope with the twin problems of Boko Haram in Nigeria, in Cameroon, and also the English-speaking move to secede from the Cameroon. To discuss these issues today, we have President Paul Biya himself here. We have Tambang Ivor, who's the spokesman for the Ambazonia Defense Forces, and Maurice Kamto, who's the leader of the Cameroon resistance movement. We will start off with an opening statement from President Paul Biya.
Merci beaucoup. Mes chers compatriotes, Camerounais, Camerounaises, please allow me to take advantage of this platform given to me by the Africa Leadership Center and also take advantage of my age to educate those who do not know, to impart knowledge to those who are ignorant. And I hope by the end of this debate, you will have an appreciation of the intricacies of Cameroon. Monsieur Moderator, my government has been criticized a lot, and so has other governments in the world and in Africa. But I, Paul Biya in particular, have been criticized for being old. My question to you, dear researchers, scholars, professors, and doctors, is what is the correlation between age and leadership? What is the impediment between age and leadership? I am youthful and patriotic in my love for Cameroon. Whilst I still have the mic, Monsieur Moderator, allow me to thank the 71% Cameroonians who voted for me overwhelmingly in their millions, voting for la force de expérience, voting for the tried and the tested. Merci beaucoup, Cameroonians.
Tapang Ivo.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. It is indeed my pleasure to represent and talk on behalf of our motherland, Ambazonia. Ambazonia Defense Force is fighting for Ambazonians' independence. For the past 58 years, we have been marginalized, repressed, and lived under the colony of La République du Cameroun. La République du Cameroun has systematically violated all human rights, causing sustained pain, torture, and disease. Hence, we are seeking for self-determination and independence. Through this panel, I hope the international community will have a grasp knowledge of what's happening in Ambazonia. Thank you.
Maurice Campton.
Thank you very much, Moderator, fellow Cameroonians, and I'm happy today to be here, being released from my makeshift jail from Yaoundé. And as you know, the struggle is not, the fight for freedom has never been without obstacle. And the history of our continent and more is replete with figures who have stayed in power over 36 years in Cameroon. And unfortunately, Cameroon now has become a collapsed state and a nation that has fallen apart. Cameroon has become helpless and defeated, where people are in doubt, and cynicism that settle in their mind. I have committed to liberate the people of Cameroon, and I'm here to present the voices of people of the, Cameroon. Thank you very much.
Members of the audience, please feel free to ask questions, say who you are and who you represent. President Paul Biya, you spend most of the time in a hotel in Switzerland. Have you got the energy really to run Cameroon and to deal with the serious problems of the economy and conflict?
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. As you can see, I have the energy to be here with you at the Africa Leadership Center.
It's just a short flight from Switzerland.
And indeed, my flight is still waiting for me to go back to Cameroon. I must point out to you and the audience here that there is this perceived notion that I spend my time in Switzerland. Come to Cameroon and you will find me in my rural home of Mvomeka. This is where I spend most of my time. So this Switzerland issue just happened, if I must note, once in my leadership tenure. I thank you.
No, you spent, I think the official record, you spent 3/4 of your time in Switzerland. I mean, Cameroon is being run by the Prime Minister, Philip Young.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. I will answer 2 questions that you have just alluded to. I am a proud leader of Cameroon, and my leadership style is that of laissez-faire. And if you understand laissez-faire, Monsieur Moderator, I have the style of leadership that is hands-off. I have the style of leadership that is delegative, and the style of leadership that allows decision-making from all sectors and all boards. I trust my government, led by my Prime Minister, Mr. Philemon Yang. And it is this mutual trust that you can all see that I am building competence and capability in my government.
Tabang Ivor, yes, the arrangement in Cameroon is that the president is from French-speaking side and the Prime Minister is English-speaking. Philemon Yang is English-speaking. So what's the problem with with the government itself if you have an English-speaking leader there?
Mr. Moderator, as I alluded before, Ambazonia has been marginalized, suppressed, repressed under the colony of La République du Cameroun. We don't deceive by a corrupted leader, that is Philemon, who is now in power. Our Anglophone Cameroonian, Ambazonians' quest is for independency, not decentralization or to have a symbolic government in Cameroon.
But southern Cameroons opted to be part of Cameroon at independence in 1961. Why are you complaining now?
Mr. Moderator, in 1961, my ancestor chose to be part of Cameroon ignorantly. We have been given only two choices. One, to choose to be part of Cameroon. The other is to be part of Nigeria. Back then, the Ambazonians choose to be part of Cameroon ignorantly. Since then, we have been under the colony of La République du Cameroun.
Maurice Campton, on what basis are you contesting the November elections?
First of all, I've never seen a president who sacrificed his own people because of his own ego. He has used force, judicial terror, and military on protests that I had conducted because of the fraudulent election that he had claimed that he had won. The election was fraud, and I have evidence to prove that when I had requested for a recount for the election, he had refuted there was no success to it, and for now he had put me in detention.
Mr. Moderator,
yes.
My government uses just force. We are a legitimate government in Cameroon, and as such, we have the monopoly over the use of violence in Cameroon. We cannot allow terrorists, dissidents, to have monopoly over the use of violence in Cameroon.
Mr. Moderator,
yes.
Up to 2 years, I have assessed the disastrous conflict in Cameroon, and there are 50,000 Cameroonians in Nigeria, over 1,000 internally displaced people in Cameroon. How can you claim that result of justified use of force? The Cameroon now is on the brinks of civil war. And now that election has become illegitimate, we cannot trade with illegitimate government to move forward as to claim a democracy for the people of Cameroon.
But the Constitutional Court ruled in favor of President Biya.
The Transparency International has been unmasked as fraudulent. At the same time, he has harassed my officials at the polling station. In fact, in the South region, he had claimed that he had won, while there were people who are 100%, he claimed 100% were voted for Biya, beyond the people who exist in that region. Yet again, the council claimed that he had won the election.
Yes, President Biya. I mean, the Constitutional Court actually came into existence in 1996, but it was only established last year. Why that long gap?
It is due to funds and resources that we had to take time to establish and fully set up this Constitutional Court. However, Mr. Moderator, I would like to teach again that leadership is not about politicking or grandstanding. Leadership is not about talk and appearances. Leadership is about action. And the action to keep Cameroon united, the action to keep Cameroon developing, and the action to keep Cameroon peaceful. Mr. Campton has just alluded to thousands who have migrated to Nigeria. Mr. Moderator, Cameroon is well aware of globalization and migration, and people are allowed to freely move in and out of the country. But the major cause of migration in Cameroon is not because of a crisis. Our biggest crisis is Boko Haram. And Mr. Kamto is aware that Boko Haram has not only affected Cameroon, it has also affected other countries in the Lake Chad. And as such, I and my government are working hand in glove with my brothers in the Lake Chad region to address this issue of Boko Haram that continues to displace the people of Cameroon in the northern region.
Tapang Ivo, I mean, as Ambazonia got the wherewithal to form a solid state, because we've seen the failure of South Sudan, are we going to have the same problem if you granted independence?
Mr. Moderator, Ambazonia is a very unique case. Unlike other countries in Africa that are seeking independence, we have been colonized. So I can assure you, once we get our independence, as other African countries will sustain. And also, Mr. Moderator, I want to allude that our government has 3 pillars. We believe in rule of law, 1. 2, we believe in democratic advocacy, and 3, we believe in good governance. So once we get our independence, I can assure you, we will be one of the democratic states in Africa. I will dare to say we will be a democratic state in the earth.
Well, the point is you don't even have control over who runs riot in Ambazonia, because there are other groups that are just causing mayhem in Ambazonia.
Mr. Moderator, all politics in the world is propaganda. There is a propaganda. This terrorist government of La République du Cameroun is terrorizing our civilians and supporting other insurgent groups so it can be on our way of independence. And also, I want to allude that the international community, specifically led by France, is hindering our independence.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My name is Samuel Eto'o, and I'm a fanboy of President Paul Biya. The question I have for Mr. Tapang Ivo, who is funding you? You keep on destabilizing Cameroon from the West in your perfect, immaculated home in America. You're a CIA agent, an agent of the West. We don't know you. You've never been to Cameroon. So why should we trust you?
Thank you for your question. We are supported by external support, which I can't reveal the name for security purposes.
So you are for CIA?
I'm not CIA. Why are you coming with CIA? Who are you supporting? Are you supported by this terrorist government? Mr. Moderator, we are supported by diasporas, and then we are also supported by other African countries who are seeking independence. And also, our aim is to arm every citizen in Ambazonia, our boys AK-47, so they can support their women and children, and also they can support their homeland.
Maurice Kamto, I mean, you're French-speaking. What's your view about the situation in Ambazonia?
I understand that the situation of the northwest and southwest region, the Anglophone region, has become a situation that has plunged the economy and the social and cultural of that area, and especially, as I've mentioned, planks of civil war. Before we continue to that, I wanted to go back to what Mr. Biya talked about Boko Haram. And I had released on November 26 a very clear and coherent action plan of how to move forward and deal with Boko Haram. And Mr. Biya, committed to his propaganda, extracted some of those action plan and used it. However, he had failed to use the DDR program for the ex-combatants in Cameroon, especially implicating some of Anglophone people in the northwest and southwest, which ignores the precondition of a DDR process. At the end of the day, that has not even addressed the situation and has increased conflict in those areas.
Well, that's the point, President Biya. You have a DDR program, but there's no ceasefire. You always have a ceasefire before a DDR program. So you're just playing lip service to peace and security in Cameroon.
Merci beaucoup, Mr. Moderator. I will start by the issue of Ambazonia. I am an 86-year-old president, and Abazonia is the issue that will bring me to my early grave. Abazonians attack each other.
Your opponents might be happy about that.
Abazonians are calling for cessation, and yet they are just a populist group that have no clue on governance whatsoever. And the reason why they attack each other is because some of them have noted how cessation can actually lead to a case that is currently happening in South Sudan. Ladies and gentlemen, Abazonians are literally killing each other. If you go on social media, Abazonians have attacked a chief to the extent that this particular chief was calling for his life to be ended. He could not afford to live anymore under the hands of the attack of the terrorists of Abazonians. Abazonians are literally...
But what about the ceasefire?
Can I please allude on this issue?
No.
Just a minute. What about the ceasefire? There's no ceasefire, so you cannot have a disarmament and reintegration program.
Mr. Moderator, we cannot cease fire when other terrorists and dissidents are still in possession of arms of mass destruction. So we cannot cease fire in such a condition.
Yeah.
My government's responsibility...
Mr. Moderator, thank you for just giving me a look in. My name is Vicky Esposito. This president is talking about someone not having any clue about governance. How would they have any clue about governance at all? Because you have occupied the same space all of these decades. You're even stopping mid-sentence. We don't even know whether you're lucid in the way in which you're speaking. You have given the citizens of Cameroon no chance. How can you be talking about Ambazonia being might be the thing to send you to your early grave? Perhaps, Mr. President, you should go to that early grave because you are part of the
Mr. Moderator, and someone in this room, can you please arrest this Vicky?
Unfortunately for you, you are not in Cameroon. You are not in Cameroon where democracy has been arrested a long time ago. Mr. President, do your people a favor, vacate the seat, and let Cameroonians think about their future governance.
Yes.
Can someone please arrest
this
Vicky?
Not at the
Mr. Moderator. But before that, Mr. Moderator, my leadership is not that of cowardice. My leadership is a servant leadership. If the people of Cameroon come to me in their millions and ask me to lead them again, who am I to say no? I, Paul Biya, will always take heed to the call of Cameroonians when they ask me to lead them.
Well, the president of Tunisia, who's 92, and they're calling for him to stand in November, says he's stepping down. So why don't you follow his example?
Cameroon is a sovereign state. We are not Tunisia. We are Cameroon. We are one and indivisible.
It's an African
I cannot step down if the people of Cameroon have not asked me to step down.
Maurice Campton.
I want to say thank you to Ms. Esposito. And I will also echo to say that we should not trivialize elections. It is not a joke. For a genuine process of an electoral process is to have a genuine democracy. But if we have erroneous and fraudulent elections, we will have illegitimate government. And that's what it explains why we have instability in northwest and southwest regions. Thank you.
Yes.
My name is Yusuf Mahmoud. I am from Le Monde. Did it occur to you, Monsieur le Président, that your days may be numbered? When you see the masses taking on the leadership mantle to change, aren't you losing some sleep if you look at what's happening in Algeria or Sudan?
Thank you very much, Mr. Youssef. No, I do not lose sleep because the situation in Cameroon is such that the crisis you have mentioned is in the northwest and the southwest. The entire region of Cameroon still loves their president, Paul Biya. So I cannot lose sleep over a small portion of Cameroon. Whilst I'm still on the stage, Mr. Moderator, I'd like to speak towards the action that my government is taking to curb the crisis in Cameroon. We have created a new ministry, and this is the Ministry of Decentralization that we created on March the 2nd of 2019. Mr. Moderator, may I please be protected from Ms. Vicky?
No, it's an open, fair discussion, yes.
Above all, can she be ejected from this room, Mr.
No, she
Moderator?
cannot be ejected. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'm Barthélemy Mouko, humanitarian agent in Cameroon. We live situation in Cameroon, especially in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon. I will ask questions.
Please speak up, young man. Speak.
I will ask my questions to the three panelists. I'll start with the President Excellency, President for Life, because you decided to render your mandate unlimited, and today you are talking about early grave, why you should be dead by now. Your Excellency, you earlier mentioned here that your Prime Minister, Philemon, due to your age, you have forgotten that 4 months ago, you just appointed a new Prime Minister, which is John Guti. That is age, you have forgotten. You forget very fast, Excellency. It's John Guti, it's no longer Philemon. Excellency, that is age. That's the correlation. You talk about correlation between leadership and what? And age. That is the correlation. That's my answer to you. Then how about the number of people, especially civilian population, who are dying northwest and southwest, and you are doing nothing, and so you are loved in that particular region? Cameroonian, you said it, they are are killing each other. The military, the gendarmes, the police, they are dying on the other side. The Ambazonians are dying. But the victims here are civilians with no weapons, and they are dying when your forces get into various homes and kill. That is my question to you. The spokesperson of the Ambazonian Defense Forces, you are standing for, we say, a genuine cause. You talk about being marginalized, but your agenda, your strategy seems to actually contradict your objective. Why I'm saying this is because we see you guys on social media arguing about money received from the diaspora, from the people. You argue about funds that to be used. Are you making money, or are you really fighting for the people? 3 years ago, you have decided to stop school. Assume this particular revolution takes 20 years. For 20 years, students or children in the southwest and northwest region will not be schooling. How will this generation, will the generation of illiterate? We are asking, up till now, you have not uplifted that suspension of classes. That is very, very dangerous. I'm talking now, what do you think about the school resumption? That is a question you have to answer, because parents want their children to school. Then the next question is Maurice Kamto, Professor Maurice Kamto. We acknowledge in Cameroon that you're an intellectual. You're a professor in law, and you've proven it time and again. Many Cameroonians respect you. I'm not a member of your political party. But I want to ask you one question. And the chairperson or the moderator said it before. You declare yourself the winner, and you were in jail. You have come out of jail. How about your whole bureau who has been arrested? Are they out of jail? That's the question I want to ask. Thank you.
Let's start with President Paul Biya.
Thank you very much, young man. Are you from Cameroon?
Yes, it's from Cameroon.
In that case, I noted also that, yes, you are very passionate about Cameroon, and indeed you must be from Cameroon. And on that note, I just want you to know what my government has been doing towards young men like you with brilliant minds to capture you and come and work in Cameroon in order to develop Cameroon into a better country. Young men, I encourage you to come home, and if you can with me, to be a part of the Ministry of Education And if you would like to be a part of the Ministry of Security, I believe you do way better in this circumstance than in your present circumstance. I thank you.
But how can he come back when unemployment is very, very high and the national debt is 35% of GDP?
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator.
That's not encouraging for him to come back.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. I'm saddened to note that you have got wrong statistics on your desk. According to the forecast and the growth rates in my country, Cameroon, 4.4% of growth rate is expected this year in 2019. And by the time we reach 2020, we would have grown to 4.7%. Mr. Moderator,
but the debt is
we
still there.
have created 500,000 jobs in 2019 before half of the year already. My government has also sent 600,000 young people to vocational training centers where they are taught entrepreneurial skills, and they are also trainers of trainers. And if you do not know where these vocational training centers are, you can find them in Douala, in Limbe, and in Sangemila.
Can you answer this question, please, Tambang?
Thank you for your question. So we are not contradicting ourselves. The war is declared on us. That's why we choose a self-defense mechanism. We are defending our women and children from the terrorist government, La République du Cameroon. Yes, as you mentioned, Ambazonians are dying every day, and no one record our deaths. No one care our deaths. That's why we decided to choose a violent mechanism of self-defense. That is, arming our boys and women so they can protect their family, and beyond they can protect their homeland. Yes. What?
Maurice, you stop them from going to school.
We don't target civilians. As I will say it again and again, we don't target civilians. Our aim is to protect our women and children. But the terrorist government, not us, is forcing children to terrorizing not to go to school. It's not our fault. What our aim and aspire is to protect our Ambaland, not terrorize.
Actually, I agree with you that you don't target civilians. You don't target civilians, but you kidnap some civilians because of money.
I reject your claim. We never kidnap anyone.
You've kidnapped.
Ambazonians Defense Force is there to protect women and children.
Thank you. You've kidnapped traditional rulers, and you showed that on social media. And it was after massive plea of the people, traditional ruler of the FACO, that they were released, and you made that particular claim. It's very evident you did that. I'm talking about school. Generally, you don't target civilians. You say it, but you kidnapped traditional rulers, and you gave some of your reason why you did that kidnapping. But I'm asking about school. Why don't you allow students from primary, secondary, and tertiary education? Recently, Ambazonian forces kidnapped 25 players of the University of Biya football teams because they were preparing for university games. And the reason is that they shouldn't go to school. Why
I reject your claim. Like I said, we never, ever, and will never are going to target civilians.
When are you uplifting the suspension
protect,
of school?
Not kidnap.
When are you uplifting the suspension of school? When would classes resume? When will classes resume in English-speaking regions?
I repeat, I reject your claim. We are there.
Mr. Tapang Ivo, you are becoming like President Paul Biya.
No, in actual fact, young men, the responsibility to protect remains with my government and not with the Ambazonians.
Mr. Moderator, we cannot hijack elections and then hijack my moment to speak.
Just answer
please.
This question, please.
Yes, I would love to answer your question about the protests. I'm actually here temporarily because I'm still in detention. And just 2 days ago, we still had 55 people are still held up on the election hold-up of the protests. And they've been affected physically and psychologically, and been addressed militarily by security agent of Mr. Paul Biya. And I want to address the hypocrisy of Mr. Paul Biya offering you a job. Yet again, he has lack of commitment in his own government. African League, Football League, has also withdrawn from Cameroon because of the bureaucracy. It exposes the fraudulent government has lack of commitment. So thank you.
Yes, but Maurice Kamto, I mean, you were responsible for resolving the territorial dispute between Nigeria and Cameroon, the Bakassi Peninsula.
Yes, that is one of my achievements.
Will you use your expertise then to resolve the Ambazonia problem?
Yes. First of all, I want to remind that I was the one who pioneered and also addressed the situation of the border region in Bakassi. And that's when I served the Ministry of Justice of Mr. Biya. But when I realized I went on for the presidency. But to the issue of Ambazonia and Northeast and Northwest, the only way we can move forward is getting rid of the illegitimate government and also to have a national consciousness and national solidarity. Then we can have dialogue. But yet again, we cannot move until the electoral hold-up is been sorted out.
Yes.
Excusez-moi, Monsieur le Président. Permettez-moi de vous poser cette question en anglais. Je m'appelle Hans de Marie Hungup. Je suis Camerounais. J'habite ici en Angleterre. As you know, Cameroon is bilingual, but we have hardly heard you address Cameroonians in English. Now that you're here in England, would like you to respond to this question in as best the English as is possible. Prior to the elections in October of last year, we had awaited your bid for the presidency for so long. We thought there was some political wrangles within the ruling CPDM. And when you came out to actually declare you would run for president, you said, quote and unquote, that Cameroonians have overwhelmingly cried for you to run again. A lie which you know is the case. But now that you're in power for the next 7 years, you're 86. By the time your term elapses, you'll be what? 93?
93.
Do you intend on having this as your last term in office? Please respond to that in definitive fashion. But for you, Mr. Tapang Ivo, when this cause for the liberation of the English-speaking Cameroonians started, it began on a very good note. But along the line, you became corrupt, you became selfish, you became evil in your cause. You began, as one of the observants here have mentioned earlier, to kidnap for ransom. And I have very many friends and family members back in the English-speaking part of the country who have fallen prey to all your tactics while you're there enjoying yourself in the US. What do you think you are doing? Do you think that the strategy you are currently using to fight the repression, which we acknowledge is a legitimate concern, do you think that strategy is not the same strategy of Paul Biya that you are criticizing?
Thank you. Paul Biya.
Thank you very much, young man, for that question. I hope I will articulate English here in a manner that will best satisfy you. You alluded to my age, 86. Yes, I am proud to be 86 because I am blessed with good health. I am blessed with good exercise, and I'm also blessed by God Himself. And I wish you equally the same blessings of old age. Young men, if Cameroonians call upon me when I am 93 years old to lead them again and call for the force of la force de experience, I will not let Cameroonians down. I thank you.
Tapang Ivo, you just respond to his question.
Thank you for your question. As I mentioned earlier, we never target civilians. And I reject your claim that we have been kidnapping our own citizens. We are there, we are arming ourselves to protect our children and women from the terrorist government. And also, men cannot be respected without weapons and arms. That's why we choose to arm our boys and women, provide AK-47 so they can protect themselves and their homeland. Mr. Moderator, I want to allude that what's happening in Ambazonia is genocide. We have been killed because of who we are, not what we have been doing. And the international community has been disrupting and they're not hearing our concern. So what is happening in Ambazonia is genocide, and Ambazonia Defense Force is there to protect women and children from the terrorist lunatic Paul Biya.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're running out of time, so we'll have a closing statement from Maurice Campton.
Thank you very much. I want to comment that I'm not going to jail for our own freedom. A country that can hold free and fair election for a legitimate leadership, and that for the past 36 years, we've been under a disguised one-party state. And for those Cameroonians of the Northwest and Southwest, forever will be my compatriots, I would like to express my deepest sympathy and solidarity for your suffering. Thank you.
Tapang Ivo.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Ambazonians have only one message to the world. The genocide that's occurring currently in Ambazonia is a result of colonization. We have heard enough threats, warning, and good moral lessons. We die every day and no one records our days. Paul Biya, a dictator, lunatic, and author of this genocide, persists because of the international community's silence. So I want to use this platform to urge and appeal for the international community to grant us our independence and sovereignty.
President Paul Biya.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Moderator. Before I conclude, I would like to say to the audience here, as you know, I appeared 3 times to address my nation, and this is a special appearance at the Africa Leadership Center. Please take advantage of this platform to ask me, President Paul Biya, your last questions before I conclude.
No, it's conclusion now.
In this case, no one wants to ask me. Thank you very much for your vote of confidence in my selfless leadership to the country of Cameroon. I'd like to conclude by thanking Cameroonians once again for voting for me overwhelmingly in their millions. I want to reiterate the need for unity, peace, and development in Cameroon. I call upon the youth to remain vigilant, patriotic towards Cameroon and towards the leadership of Cameroon. Merci beaucoup, Cameroonians. And for my part, I want to rest assure you that I will remain with the common vision to bring about democracy, peace, and development. Cameroon remains one and indivisible. I thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. And let's hope that President Biya will be around in 7 years' time to join us for another debate. Thank you very much.